Let's go. We can do it. We can power through. God, the pre-recorded ones have no idea, do they? They have no idea. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. It's True Crime with Jess Rose. I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday, 8 p.m. Tuesdays are my request evening. Thursdays the stories that I like to bring to you. If you'd like to join my Patreon, it's patreon.com/Jess Rose 5472. Or I'm over on the TikTok, which is Jess Rose 5472. Or you could just like and comment, and that'd be amazing. Or you could just watch. That's just as good. Just as good. I'd appreciate that just as much. So now that I've got all that out of the way, tonight's story is the Horrific Stacey Hanna Story. Now, it is horrific. No two ways about it. The two ways about it. It's absolutely awful. It genuinely is. So I'm going to begin that now. Okay. So information on this story is quite limited. It really is, and I don't know why. I mean, it does go back to the 90s, but it really is. It's so bad. I just don't understand why there's not more about it. Okay, so we have Stacey Hanna, who was born in 1978-79 in Lynchburg, Virginia. It is an American story. Okay, her mum, Kathy Hanna. Okay, I don't know if she had siblings. I can't find that out. If you know any more information on this story that I don't put across, I'd really appreciate it. I know there's a book out there that I actually haven't read yet, because I only found out there was a book yesterday. So yeah, if you know any more on it that I don't pull across, I'd really appreciate that. But it is said that Stacey was a very kind-hearted and generous girl. She was very pretty. She was quite petite. She was a petite little thing. It said that she was very friendly. She made friends really easily, very quickly. She just seemed like a really nice girl. Okay. Now we get to the 4th of July 1997. All right. Now, Stacey, she'd been, during her teenage years, she'd become a bit confused with regards to her own sexuality. Okay, she wasn't too sure how she felt, but she did know she was attracted to girls. Okay, and she'd helped a friend move, and a friend was moving to Richmond, in Virginia, and I believe Lynchburg is more central, where Richmond's more on the outskirts. I could be wrong, but I believe that's where it is. And when she helped a friend move, she really liked Richmond. She was like, I feel like I could be quite comfortable here, and because it had quite a large LGBTQ community, and she was just so excited. So like I say, on the 4th of July 97, I believe it's Independence Day, she moved to Richmond to start this new life. Now, she was only 18, she was very young, but her mum could see that this could be really good for her, and she just felt she'd be more comfortable than where the town she lived in, which possibly wasn't as gay friendly, I suppose you could say. All right. Now, as I said, she felt she could be herself here. She got a job quite quickly, and it was on a riverboat. It was like a restaurant and bar on this riverboat. She got a job there. All of these, the whole story happens very, very quickly. So everything I'm gonna say to you is all in quite a short amount of time. All right. Now, she made friends with some young women quite quickly there, and a couple of them lived in a townhouse not far from the main town centre. All right. And they offered her a room there, and this was on a road called Belmont Avenue, and it was known to be a party house. these girls were from the LGBTQ community themselves. It was known to be a party house. Like I say, it was called the Girls of Belmont Avenue. That's what they were called. And they offered her a room, and she jumped at it. Of course she did. She was like, she just thought, God, I've got a job, I've got somewhere to live, this is great, I'm with my people. You know, she just thought this was fantastic. Now, what I'll say is, the group of friends she made, they don't all live in the house, but I'm gonna give you a group of names now. All right. There'll be 4 girls I'm going to mainly talk about, as well as Stacey. All right. And the 4 girls are Kelly Tibbs, and her nickname is Turtle. And it's a name she answers to. It's a name she's known as. And apparently it was because her name, Kelly Tibbs, I'm assuming it's a surname, Tibbs, she was told by a, oh God, what's the Native American, that her name meant water, something to do with the sea, the ocean, that kind of thing. So anyway, her nickname's Turtle, all right? And she was classed as the leader of this group. Now, Turtle, that's what I'm going to refer to her as. She's only 18 herself, all right? They're all young girls. Then we have a girl called Tracy Bittner, okay? She's 19. She's the eldest of the group. And she's the on-off girlfriend of Turtle, all right? Now, Tracy, bit of a bad temper. It says to me, if you were talking about a male group, you would class Tracy as being Turtle's enforcer. That's kind of what I've got her down as, plus her on-off girlfriend, okay? Then you've got Stephanie Cull, who's 18. Now, Stephanie, she's got rheumatoid arthritis. She's registered as disabled, but she's also part of the group. And then you've got Dominica Winkler, 18 as well. She's the only straight member of the group, okay? She's the only straight one, but she gets on very well with the group. And she's part of, I suppose you would call, the Girls of Belmont Avenue. She's part of that group, okay? And Stacey fits in straight away. They take to her, you know, she's part of the group. It works for a very short amount of time, though, all right? She was so happy she could be openly gay, you know. She was so happy. And then, just the worst thing could have happened. She just didn't know it was the worst thing. She begins a very, I want to say a fling. No, I don't think Stacey thought it was a fling, but Turtle did. And she starts this fling with Turtle. Don't forget, Turtle is Kelly Tibbs, okay? And she thinks it's a relationship. Now, don't forget what I've said about Turtle. She is in an on and off relationship with Tracy, the bad-tempered Tracy, okay? And the group themselves believe that Turtle was only doing it to really get Tracy jealous. That's the only reason she was doing it. But Stacey, this is her, not only her first gay relationship, it's her first relationship, full stop. And she fell hook, line and sinker really, really quickly. And the reason I keep emphasising the time frame is this fling, and it's all I can call it really, because it only lasted, I've heard a week and I've heard 2 weeks. I mean, even if we go for the you know, the longer time period, it's still only 2 weeks, okay? And Total got bored. And like I say, it was thought that she was only doing it to get Tracy jealous anyway. It was quite a toxic relationship by the sounds of it, Turtle and Tracy. And she finished with her. But Stacey was devastated. She was so upset, but it was said that Turtle loved Tracy, Tracy loved Turtle. And Stacey if she'd have had previous relationships, maybe she'd have seen this for what it was and saw it as a fling, and something quick and it was over and move on. But because it was her first openly gay relationship, it's a real shame. The breakup hit her really hard and she was heartbroken, okay? And she really wanted Turtle back. She couldn't see this for what it was. Don't forget, these are very young girls as well. And Stacey, she's come from a much quieter place. And she seems like she was quite young. I not young-minded, because that makes her sound like she's not that all there, but she was. It was just, I suppose it was. You remember your first love, it's over, and you do get over it quite quick. But as I've said, all of this happens very quickly anyway. And don't forget, she's living in the same house as Turtle. So you fell for someone hook, line and sinker, and they've just finished with you, and now you've got to live with them. It must have been awful for her. So what Stacey does, in kind of a last-ditch attempt to get Turtle back, because all the group had got sick of it. They were bored now. Because Stacey was still very trying to get Turtle back, and they were all just like, get over it, what's the matter with you? They couldn't understand her reaction. And in this last-ditch attempt to kind of drive a wedge in between Turtle and Tracy, she tells Turtle, Kelly Tibbs, don't forget, that Tracy has only been using her and that she'd never loved her. She was using her for free rent in the house, and just it was obviously lies. It obviously was. I don't know how she thought she was going to get away with it. I don't know, but again, it's showing that immaturity. This is what I'm talking about. And Turtle goes straight to Tracy, all guns blazing. Tracy's kind of looking at her going, what are you talking about? What do you want about? Obviously denies it, knows nothing about it. Everyone else is like, well, that's obviously rubbish. And the group are furious with Stacey. They are furious, okay? Because they're seeing their little group, their quite close-knit group. There's one person who's causing a problem in it, and they're not happy with her, especially now the fact she's lying. And it was openly a lie, okay? And everyone knew it was a lie. But I think she was just clutching at straws, I don't think could it have been love that quick? I think it would have been a puppy love. It would have been a first love. But it's just a real shame that she was still living at that house. Her best thing would have been, as soon as it ended, to leave. That would have been her best bet. But she didn't. So on Thursday, July the 24th, 1997, and I'm going to say again, remember I'd said, this all happened very quick. Stacey's only been in Richmond at this point 20 days. She hasn't even been there 3 weeks yet. And all of this has happened. So Turtle and Damika, they have it out with Stacey. And they're just like, you're a liar. What are you making all this up for? Obviously, Stacey, this is the last thing she wants to happen, that Turtle's mad at her. That wasn't what was supposed to happen by the lie. And it gets quite volatile in the house, to the point where the neighbours phone the police. Police come round, it gets all quiet and down and everything else. They all talk. And afterwards, it looks like it's resolved. Well, Stacey thinks it's resolved. From her point of view, they've had it out, they've had this row, she's had a bit of a bollocking over it. She thinks that'll be the end of it. But don't forget Tracy, as I've mentioned, she's quite a volatile character. Damika, it said that you wouldn't mess with her. Turtle herself had a very troubled upbringing. She got pregnant when she was 13 after being sexually assaulted by 5 men. You know, they'd all had kind of a rough upbringing, and then you've got Stephanie, who it doesn't say anything about her upbringing, but you know, she's got this disability, so they've all kind of got problems. And I don't know if that's what brought them all together, but I don't know about Stephanie. But the rest of them, you know, they're very, very highly strung girls, and they're not getting over this as quickly as Stacey's hoping, and Stacey believes they have. All right. So behind her back, they all talk about the Stacey problem. That's what they call it. They actually call it that, the Stacey problem, and what they should do about it. And basically, they come to an agreement and they make a plan that they're going to arrange to get her to like a local park to teach her a lesson. Okay, that's what they come up with. This, don't ask her to leave, you know, kick her out. You're adults. You're not living at home anymore. You're not at school. Act like an adult. If you can see this girl is apparently causing problems with the group, ask her to leave. No, we're gonna take her to a park and we're gonna beat her up. That's what we're gonna do. I mean, but we get to Saturday, July the 26th, 97. So it's 2 days after that argument that they had. All right. And the plan was to go to Marshfield. Okay, this is a place near the airport that a lot of groups hang out at. They drink, smoke, all of that sort of stuff. You get a lot of teenagers hanging out. Again, so, but you've got a house. Why are we going here? Now, Stacey, she's nervous. She's really nervous about this. She doesn't want to go. So she agrees that she'll go with them if, I don't know if it's got to be a mutual friend, because like I say, she's only been there at this point just over 3 weeks, okay? But it's a friend called Dana Vaughan. And she says, oh, I'm only going to go, excuse me, if Dana goes, then maybe she knew the rest of them weren't as forgiving as she at first thought. And she thought maybe if she's got Dana there with her, you know, she'll have a bit of support there. But Dana, when she comes in, she's like, she's got a real bad flu. So I'm not going. I don't want to go. But they all know if Dana doesn't come, Stacey's not coming, and the whole plan goes to pot. You know, their great plan. You know, the big plan they've come up with. So I believe it was Turtle turned around to her, or it could have been Tracy, but they were like, stop being an idiot. Yeah, just take some, you know, flu medicine or pills or whatever it is. Apparently it was quite strong. Gave her a couple of beers. And before you know it, she's like, right, okay, I'm coming. But apparently she was quite dopey. She was doped up, basically. But she agrees to go. Okay? So they all leave and they go in Stephanie's car. All right, so there's actually at this point 6 of them. All right, so we've got Stacey, we've got Dana, and then we've got the 4 girls. We've got Kelly, i.e. Turtle, Tracy, Stephanie, and D'Amica. All right, so 6 of them who've gone. Okay, so they arrived at Marshfield about 9 p.m. Okay. And when they get there, Dana, at this point, you know, Stacey's support system, she's fell asleep. She fell asleep in the car. She would, like I say, apparently she was really quite poorly. She took a mass amount of sort of flu medicine. And she had a couple of drinks, completely knocked her out. So she was kind of in and out. It said that she was in and out that evening. But at this point, when they pulled up, she was asleep. So the rest of them got out of the car. Okay. And they begin having fun. They're listening to music, they're having a couple of drinks, they're actually having a laugh. Stacey thinks, okay, maybe I was worried for nothing. Maybe it will be okay. And, it does look like it's going all right until Turtle gives a signal, okay? And I don't know what this signal apparently was, but there was a signal that had been prearranged. And when this signal was given, they just all begin beating Stacey. All of them. Now, I say all of them. Stephanie, as I've said, she got rheumatoid arthritis. It's said to be quite debilitating. It was quite a severe case. So she didn't get involved in the real severe beating, but she was there, and she still, kicked a couple of times, punched a couple of times, but it was mainly Turtle, Tracy, and D'Amica. Okay, they were kicking her, were punching her. D'Amica started whipping her with her belt. At one point, then Stacey's, after a couple of punches to the face, she's fell to the floor. She's very confused. She's asking why. What have I done? Why are we doing? Why are you doing this to me? She's obviously in pain now, and they're just screaming at her because you're a liar. Because you're a liar. Apparently, the majority of that was Tracy herself, and obviously it was Tracy she'd lied about. Okay, so it was her screaming, "You're a liar," and it started off that way. It started off because initially it was just to give her a hiding. What they wanted to do, they wanted to beat her, leave her there, and let her walk home. That's apparently what the original arrangement was. But then after about 10-15 minutes, that's a long time for people to be kicking and punching and whipping you, okay? But D'Amica bends down, she picks up a cinder block. A cinder block, it's like a slab of cement, okay, concrete. And she picks it up and she drops it onto Stacey's head. All right. And you think they'd all kind of stop and be shocked and be like, what are you doing? No. Because that somehow then revved them up to get their box cutters out. And we call them Stanley blades. Obviously, in everything I've read, it's box cutters, all right? But they get these box cutters out and they begin slashing her. Just slashing her. It's mainly Turtle, Tracy, and D'Amica, as I've said. Stephanie did mainly watch, although we do know that she slashed her at least twice herself. The girl who couldn't hold anything said she couldn't even squeeze a clothes peg together, but she could slash her with a Stanley blade. She could do that. Then they carved with the box cutter lawyer into her thigh. She's still alive even after having that cinder block smashed onto her head. She's still alive. She's still crying. She's still begging them to stop. She begins to have slashes on her hands as defense wounds where she's trying to fight them away and get them away. And as quick as they started, they stopped. They just stopped and they left her on the floor. Now remember, the original plan was just to give her a hiding, I'm being so flippant, but that was the plan, to beat her up and then leave her there, let her have to walk home or whatever, and that had been her learning her lesson. But since the cinder block got dropped on her head, and the fact that they had these box cutters on them anyway, that doesn't make sense to me, that it was only supposed to be a beating. Well, why have you got them on you? But after they've done all this damage to this young girl, and remember I said at the beginning, she's only a slight little girl. She's tiny. After they've done all this damage to her, they just stop and they get up and they get in the car and they drive away, leaving her in agony on the floor. Okay, so as they're driving away, though, now, said that Turtle had said, you know, maybe we've gone a bit far, maybe we should, you know, phone her an ambulance or something. Maybe we should do something. And D'Amica and Tracy was like, no, she's going to tell them. She'll tell them what we've done. So then Tracy comes up with the excellent idea of cutting out her tongue. Now, don't forget, they've left her, they've gone. But as they're driving away, they're now coming up. They're not satisfied. They're like, should we cut out her tongue? So she can't say what we've done. And D'Amica goes, and then we'd have to cut off her fingers so she couldn't write it down. This is the childlike mentality of these girls. It's this teenage mob mentality. It's crazy. We've done many stories like this. I think this one most resembles Shanda Sharer. It most resembles that story to me. And so they turn around and they go back. And when they get back, she's still lying there in agony, but she's managed to crawl away. Not far, she hasn't got very far. And they pick her up and they bring her around to the boat. I believe it was Tracy and D'Amica. Bring her around to the boat. Apparently she begs them not to throw her in the boat, saying she's claustrophobic. Please don't put me in there. And they just told her to shut up and threw her in. I believe D'Amica spat on her. And they closed the boat and they got in the car and drove off. Now, as they're driving, she's screaming in the back and she's banging on the boat. You know, she's begging them to let her out, and she's begging just to speak to her mum. It's just such a shame. But they carry on driving and she's still banging. So in the end, D'Amica says, pull over. They pull over and she walks around, she opens up the boat and she stabs her again. Okay, and she's basically like, shut up. And she goes, and while we're here, give me your watch. And she hands over a watch and she takes her rings off her as well. Spits on her again. Closes the boat and gets back in the car. All right. So they drive until they get to a quiet logging trail just off Nash Road, it's called. Okay. Again, they all get out the car except for Dana, again, who's still completely oblivious to all this. I've heard two stories. I've heard that she was completely oblivious, and I've also heard that she did come to at one point in a foggy way and thought that she could see Stacey on the floor with blood on her. But I've heard different versions of that. But at this point, she's still passed out, Dana is. So they all get out of the car. They get Stacey out of the boot, who's crying. She's in agony, this girl is. She's been stabbed. I don't know how she's still alive. I'm going to be honest. That she's had a cinder block smashed over her head. She's been stabbed many, many, many times. She's had lawyer carved into her thigh. She's been through a real ordeal, but she's still fighting. She's still alive. Okay. And then they drag her down a dirt road. So I think it's about 100 yards from where the car is. And they stop by sort of this big muddy puddle, all right? And they strip her down to her underwear, okay? And then Stephanie, you know, the arthritic one, who can't do anything, she starts the whole thing off again. She stabs her in her back. In her back, says it all, doesn't it? But she stabs her in her back with such force that Stacey falls face down into the muddy water, okay? And then they all begin beating her again. It all just starts again. It's what I'm on about with this mob mentality. They just roll each other up. And it always shocks me that there's not one of them that will say, no, we're not going to do this. Let's stop. It's always the opposite reaction. And it's like they always try and one-up each other who can do the most damage to this poor girl who they've known for just over 3 weeks. And it's said that when they were in the car, they kind of all agreed that now she has got to die. So Turtle tries strangling her. Doesn't work. It's not as easy as you might think. They're slashing her. D'Amica, she's stabbing at her. they're trying everything to kill this girl, but she's still alive. Tracy then goes up and she slashes her across the throat a couple of times. Now, it didn't actually hit any arteries. How, I don't know, but it didn't. But it did slash her windpipe. Okay. Also, just before this happened, Tracy had been putting mud in her mouth and in her nose. She'd been shoving it into her mouth and her nose to try and suffocate her because Tailtron Strangler hadn't worked. She's like, oh my God, you animals. Right. No, I swore I'd never use animal again. Now, as I said, she slashed a windpipe. Now, she was choking on the mud because of where she was, that muddy puddle. She was choking on that. They could hear it. They could hear her gargling. But she was still alive. Okay. But they're just like, let's just leave her now. And they go back to the car. Bar Turtle, she turned round. And she stabs her deep in the chest with a stick. And then leaves her there. And she's alive. She's still alive at this point. She said all she wanted. I think she'd said in the trunk, please, I just want to tell my mum I love her. And just, you know, you could say even in the first attack, it just escalated and it was a frenzied attack. But they had time to calm down in that car. They left her. They chose to go back. Oh, just awful. And this went on for 2 hours. The whole ordeal was 2 hours long. And when on their way back, they throw the box cutters and Stacey's blood-soaked clothes in a dumpster near Tracy's place. I mean, you know, come on. Sometimes the stupidity is crazy to me. It's crazy. You might as well have just put it in your kitchen bin, for goodness sake. So by the time they get back, it's quite late. They're all there, very rolled up still, very, you know, saying, I did this. Well, I slit her throat. I really enjoyed that. I did this. I smacked her over the head with the cinder block. You know, they're very braggy over it with each other. They're very excited. And as the night goes on, then they all go to bed. How do you sleep? I don't get it. Dana apparently was neither here nor there. She wasn't aware of anything that had gone on that night. I mean, that's a dangerous way to get state to get yourself into. That your friend's being murdered in front of you and you're a couple of feet away in the car and you don't hear any of it. You don't see any of it. Bar that one source that I saw that said she vaguely remembers seeing her with blood on her but didn't know what she was looking at, and then she passed back out or whatever she did. So they all go to bed, and when they get up in the morning, now D'Amica had threatened them all. She was like, if any of yous talk, same thing's going to happen to yous. So although Turtle was apparently the leader of the group, seems like, and Tracy was apparently, for my word, her enforcer. Seems like D'Amica was, she seemed to rule that group too. Well, the next day, Tracy can't, can she? She can't keep this quiet. She's too proud. She's too proud of what she's done. And she tells a couple of her friends, now don't forget, when they left Stacey, she was still alive. So the friends go to the police and they tell them, look, they've took this girl somewhere. They beat her, she's really badly hurt. She could, we don't know where she is, but it sounds like she's in real trouble. Okay. So, and also Stephanie, she tells her girlfriend. So none of them kept quiet. They couldn't even keep quiet 12 hours. So the police quickly turn up at the townhouse. Okay, and they say, we're looking for a missing girl. Stacey Hanna, we're looking for her. So while they're being questioned, the girls are being questioned, Stephanie kind of, I don't know if she pulled up outside or what had happened, but she panics and she goes to a car wash. Well, the police were following her. They were following her. So when she gets to the car wash and they see her running round and about to try and clear this car of any evidence that might be in there, they stop her. They run out. They like stop her. They confiscate the car there and then. And they start looking in the car and there's blood in the boot. There's blood in the back. It's all very questionable. They also find hair in the boot. So they're all picked up. All 5 girls, including Dana. Okay. Now Dana sticks to what she says. She's like, listen, I don't know. I was out of it last night. So, and the other girls, when they're talking and Dana comes up, they all say the same thing. They're like, listen, she was out of it last night. She slept for the whole time we were out. And what they begin to say at the very beginning is, yes, she was with us, but, she left us. She left and we haven't seen her since. It's what they start off saying. It doesn't last long. It doesn't last long at all. Bit of probing from the police and they all start bending, as we know they do. And they all start turning on each other, including Turtle and Tracy, Love's Young Dream, who the whole thing was over in the first place, kind of, with the lie and everything else. Oh, yeah, they turn on each other. Darika, she turns, but how she messes herself up is while she's in the, she's been interrogated, she's got a watch on her arm. And they're like, we need to look at that watch. We need to look at that. So they take the watch off her. They want to search everything. Whose is the watch? It's Stacey's. What was she thinking? Okay. Then they go and search all the bins around the place and just outside Tracy's house. There's the clothes. There's the box cutters. All there. This is all found the next day. But they still don't know where Stacey is. And they do say to Turtle, do you think she's still alive? And apparently she said, look, I hope so. I hope she is. She goes, but we really, we beat her. We really did beat her, but I hope she's still alive. Okay. So Turtle takes the police to where they've left Stacey. Well, she takes them to the 2 places. She takes them to the place where where the attack started. And that's where they see the cinder block with blood all over it. There's a very expensive ring that had been dropped, which was Stacey's. There's blood, there's hair everywhere. It's quite obvious that an attack's happened here. And then she takes them to where they eventually had brought Stacey to. And when they get down there, there is Stacey. And she's lying there on her side. Apparently, like she's sleeping. She's got her hands underneath her head. But she's dead. Oh, It's just sort of such a shame. It really is. Now, when the autopsy was done, the cause of death was actually drowning. Okay. And if you remember when I said she'd slit her throat, but it had cut a windpipe, when she'd been pushed and left face down, she'd started ingesting the muddy water through the wound. That's what had actually killed her. The cinder block, that had fractured her skull, but she'd lived through that. She had 65 separate cuts and wounds all over her. She had 14-inch stab wounds on her body. Obviously the word lawyer carved into her thigh. Her nose was broken. She had black eyes. Obviously there was very thick slash wounds to her hands where she tried to protect herself. So as I've said, the cause of death was drowning. My heart breaks because it's like, how long did that take after they left her? And it said that had she been out, maybe if she'd have been able to get herself out of that water properly, I don't know how she could have lived, to be honest, but if that's how she died, maybe she could have lived. But I just think it's just so sad. It's like, how long did it take? I don't know. But the manner of death was homicide. Okay. So, they're all obviously charged with, well, Turtle, Tracy, D'Amica and Stephanie are all charged with, Turtle, Tracy and D'Amica are charged with capital murder because there was a robbery involved in the murder, which was when they were robbing her watch, her rings. But Stephanie herself, because she hadn't taken part in the majority of the assault, she was charged with first degree murder. Okay, now the capital murder, you can go for the death penalty with that. So that's what they were going for. The public was so upset. They really were, including the community of Richmond themselves, because they felt it was going to look bad on them as the gay community. They thought it might look on them, and they were like, this hasn't got anything to do with their sexuality. This is teenage thuggery, basically. Which it was. So Dana herself, she wasn't charged at all. She didn't get charged at all. Now, the death penalty was actually sought for Tracy and D'Amica. Okay, and it was sought with those two. D'Amica because of robbing her and the cinder block, and Tracy, I believe, for robbing her and for slashing her throat. Okay, I don't know why Turtle wasn't included in that. You know, the main cause of the whole thing. You know, she's not in the, you know, down for going to be sentenced to death, basically. So they have the trial, and of course it's the defences are, they've had a hard life, they've had such a rough upbringing, you can't do this. It's pathetic. I have no time for it. Okay, so now they were all found guilty. Okay, all of them. Now I will tell you, I want to give you all their names again. Okay, so we have Kelly Turtle Tibbs. She was given life, no parole. Okay. Tracy Bittner. She was given life, no parole. Stephanie Cole. She was given 20 years because, you know, of her arthritis, she couldn't do a lot. So, I'm sorry, I've got no sympathy for these whatsoever. Now, D'Amica, now, I've got to admit, I agree with Stacey's mum here. No, hold on, let me explain myself. D'Amica, she was given a death sentence. sentenced to death. And Kathy, Stacey's mum, this is what the jury had come back with, and Kathy wrote a letter to the judge. Now, when I first started hearing about this, I was like, oh God, what? Because she wrote a letter to the judge saying she didn't want her to be sentenced to death. And I was like, why? What? I wasn't sure. Was she forgiving her? What was it? And no, it wasn't that at all. What it was is Kathy believed they all should have got the death penalty. All of them. Kathy said, including Dana, you know, the one who was passed out in the car. She reckons she should have got the death penalty as well. So it wasn't that she was against the death penalty or she was feeling sorry for any of them or anything else. How she was seeing it is because Damika was a black girl. She felt that it was, and also she knew her daughter Stacey. She wouldn't have wanted that injustice. And she did feel it was a racial element of it. That why had she been given a death sentence, but the others hadn't? And I've got to admit, I agree. Why weren't they? Why didn't they all get it? And she says it wasn't. She's not defending Jamaica by any stretch of the imagination. She wants her to face death, but she just thought it was unfair that they all hadn't got that. So the judge obviously read the letter, and he came back with okay, and sentenced Damika to life, no parole. Okay, so the three got the same. All right. I've got to admit, I agree. I do agree. I don't know why Damika got it. They tried to say it was because of the watch. And her defence attorney was like, are you telling me she's getting sentenced to death because of a watch? And really, that's what it's kind of coming down to, and it's not good enough. So I did understand where Kathy was coming from. The fact that Dana should have got a death penalty as well. Listen, if that was my daughter, yeah, I'd feel the same. If you were there, whether you were conscious or not, I wouldn't care. I'd throw the book at the lot, yeah. So I do understand where she's coming from in that. Okay. So right up until the year 2000, Turtle, Tracy and Damika had been appealing their sentences, but they exhausted all of those. So the three of them will never see the light of day again, which, fabulous. Stephanie, unfortunately, was released in 2015. She'd done 20 years. Well, no, she hadn't actually. I'm lying. She'd got 20 years. She only done 18. Sorry, I'm lying. She'd only done 18. So she was 36 when she was released. You know, go on and adopt children. She could live a perfectly good life. And I don't agree with that. I don't agree with it at all. More to the point, she drove them everywhere. She was driving. She went on. She didn't have to drive back. You know, when they got out there and she knew they were going to give her a hiding, she didn't have to go along with that. But maybe when she saw it escalate, she could have been like, right, I haven't signed up for this. I'm out of here. If you want to lift, you can take one. But otherwise, you know, she tried to make it out that she was scared too. But when they turned up at the second assault site, the murder site, she was the first one to stab at Stacey. So I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all. But yeah, she was released, like I say, in 2015. So yeah, just an awful case. Very, very sad. And the fact that they'd all only known each other for like 3 weeks, it's just awful. But that was the Horrific Stacey Hanna Story. Oh, she's really, really sad. It very much reminds me of Shanda Sharer. I've done quite a few stories like this, but it genuinely does remind me of that story. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Like I say, I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Tuesdays are my requesting, and Thursdays are stories that I like to bring to you that you might not have perhaps heard of. And if you could like or subscribe, I'd really appreciate that. But thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Thank you. Take care. Thank you.